I think people are starting to cotton on. I think the mainstream media is starting to understand that things are shifting. The media landscape's changing.
Can you explain what The Pint is for our viewers?
Yeah, The Pint is essentially a Gen Z first publication. We have an Instagram with quite an active following there and a newsletter. And we have got the advantage that everyone involved in The Pint is of a certain generation that speaks that language and understands the medium. My frustration when I started it is I didn't see anything like this. I wanted to consume this kind of content. I wanted to read the news and not want to jump off a bridge. If we don't do something now, there are going to be a lot of people who just don't see themselves staying here. There's a kind of cautious optimism I've noticed around not just our page, but in general. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but it is still achievable.
Giacomo, Skeate, welcome to the LFG podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on. Can you tell us about your background and how you got to working with the Pint newsletter?
Yes. So my first proper job, if you want to call it that, was working as a waiter, just at an Italian restaurant. So I did that through school and kind of stayed in hospitality for a few years as I was studying. And my first job was really working for myself, doing, during our gap year, we were originally going to start a street food business, selling Italian. They're called Trapizzini, is the original place in Rome that does it. They're kind of like pockets of focaccia with meatballs in it, aubergine, parmigiana, like kind of an Italian burrito, if you will. And we were going to, we had a business plan ready. We were going to start selling these all over London. It was going to be amazing. And then we were just told to do one by pretty much every single market that we applied to. And so we were like, okay, well, this was me and two other guys, both taking gap years.
How come? Like, why didn't... I don't know if there's a system of how you get into like a market stall, but...
Well, you have to apply. You have to say this is why we think we'd be a good addition to the stall.
Like and permits and stuff.
So it
was refusals from councils.
Yeah, just councils and the actual organisers themselves saying like, yeah, you're a bunch of kids. Why would we let you on? And even if it was an original product that no one else had, and it's Italian, so it's gonna do well.
Yeah.
We were kind of stuck. Like, okay, well, what do we do now? This has completely tanked all of our plans. We were very fortunate in that one of the partners knew of an Italian restaurant, like a fully fledged restaurant that had just shut down and they were needing to occupy the place. And he's like, do you want to have a look? Go and tour this place and see if it could be a fit for you. And we said, well, we don't really have anything else on, so sure, we'll go and check it out. And this place was an absolute pit, like awful. But we took it. We got a pretty good deal on the rent in terms of not having to pay for the first couple months. Again, thanks to this connection. But we took it. And my first proper job was having an Italian restaurant almost by accident. More of a pizzeria than restaurant, but that was kind of where I got started. And sorry, go for it.
No, I was going to say, like, it's quite an unusual thing, right, for leave school, gap year. I did gap year. I didn't think about starting a restaurant. Like, what was the interest? Like, you and your friends, like, it's been something you were always interested in doing?
I think I've always been quite, it's a bit of a cliche, but, I've always been entrepreneurial since I was young. It wasn't a job, but the first way that I would earn a bit of extra change would be selling English crisps in Italy. So when I used to live in Italy, I would get, wait till I tell you which crisps they were, or were very popular.
Told UK Customs about this.
Yeah.
No, this was...
You bought
For the record, this never happened. This was all a joke.
UK export control, like, wait a second.
And this was before Brexit as well, so it was a lot easier. But I would sell, like Frazzles, Doritos, the salt and shakes would do pretty well in Italy. So I would sell those, and that's kind of where I got like a taste of, it's quite thrilling to do your own thing, and I think it just, again, another cliche, but the entrepreneurial bug kind of latched onto me, and I'd always had this thing of having my own business, and the restaurant / pizzeria was the first kind of vehicle for doing that seriously after school, after done studying and A-levels. And so, yeah, that was my first foray into the world of work.
Italy as well, there's a lot of small businesses there, lots and lots of independent businesses. Do you think it was something to do with that and like growing up around that environment?
I think so. Both my parents had their own businesses at various points. My mum ran an English school in the town where we lived. So yeah, I think that also I absorbed a lot of that. And yeah, Italy is famous for its kind of mom and pop stores, and it's very, well, especially where we're from, it's very community focused.
Yeah,
and it's
community
a huge
businesses
part of it.
is such a big thing, and like I think like people in the town become patrons of places, and it's not, you don't really get that many chains and what have you.
I mean, yeah, look at what's happened to the high streets in this country. Like that's big. I'm sure we'll get more into that, but yeah, I mean, and now going into like policy stuff and looking at the importance of small business, like SMEs are the backbone really of a developed economy. And with the pint now, we are an SME again, and I want to develop that and try and contribute in some way.
Can you explain what the pint is for our viewers?
Yeah, so I mean, it is a big jump from the like pizzeria to that, but the pint is essentially a Gen Z first publication. We have an Instagram with quite an active following there, and a newsletter which goes out once a week, every Friday, where we essentially keep people up to date on what's happening in the UK, a bit of stuff abroad, all through memes and silly commentary, irreverent commentary. And it's basically taking what The Economist is, a little bit of what Private Eye does, but putting a different spin on it. And my frustration when I started it is I didn't see anything like this already in the UK. I wanted to consume this kind of content, and I wanted to read the news and not want to jump off a bridge after doing it or be super bored reading and being informed. So that's kind of the gap that we try to fill.
Well, it's like traditional publications now. I mean, I don't think I get any of my media from traditional. I might have BBC News notifications because I think it's like a good basis of
even that they do it too much. They're always pinging you.
Yeah,
so.
I know. God, telling me. But it's really, I think it's so good that you've gone out and grasped the fact that people, majority of our generation, and they're not reading newspapers. They're not watching the news at 10. Really, no. Like it's they.
When
get
was the last time you watched the news at 10?
When I was at my dad's.
Yeah, literally. So.
You pitched this idea, right? You pitched it to some companies, the idea of like a meme department or something.
When we say that we pitched it, we approached them with it and didn't make it past reception. But I think people are starting to cotton on. I think the mainstream media is starting to understand that things are shifting.
Yeah.
I think it was in the news today actually that Keir Starmer is hosting like a influencer round table at Downing Street.
It's the best like Westminster approach, isn't it? To it, like
but it's good that people are recognising it, and
True.
All the major parties post memes to varying degrees of success, but they recognise that the media landscape is changing, so you need to adapt, and we have got the advantage that everyone involved in the pint is of a certain generation that speaks that language and understands the medium really well.
How did you meet the other people that work for it?
So we met through friends, really, just kind of, how you get introduced to people and go, oh, okay, well, we have this person in common, so we must have some stuff in common. So I met the other co-founder through that. And then people just kind of emerged from the small following we had early on, and
various corners of the internet,
scurrying away or into the pint. And it's kind of grown quite organically. People I think the best way to find talent for a media entity is through the people who actually consume your media, because they understand what you're trying to do, and you don't have to explain much to them. They already get it. So it's kind of grown quite organically.
How did you find that initial growth, right? Because it's a lot of people.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm always looking for growth.
It's to me.
It's just what I'm always looking for. Is explain.
Picturing the hat on you.
Someone explain it. the tough things that a lot of people, right, is starting something and getting that like initial kind of market fit and working out, like, there's lots of ideas out there, but they never get traction. So what was that like for you? Like, how did you bridge that?
To be honest, it's just, it sucks early on because you're putting stuff out and no one likes it, or you're not getting any results. That puts a lot of people off. But it didn't with us, because we knew that at some point this was going to land and we were going to get some traction. We got a bit of early traction with one of our posts, and it was freakishly early, and then everything else was just really bad or just very average in terms of views. So we were like, okay, something happened, so this could happen again. And so we were just waiting for that moment, and it came, I want to say March, April of last year. It was when we started to see real sustained growth in terms of the Instagram, and then that translated over to the newsletter as well. People go into that too.
We talk a lot about kind of financial risk tolerance with guests on this pod, but I actually think a lot of it is like how much are you willing to kind of put yourself out there and like try new things and take risks that like are creative. And do you know what I mean?
I mean, there's putting yourself out there from the point of view of a personal brand. I think that takes a lot of courage, to open yourself up to criticism and even what you guys do on the podcast. You're out, you're public facing people. That's a risk. But yeah, making any kind of media is a risk, because you're always going to get people chiming in, just for the sake of chiming in or being negative, and you can't really pay much attention to it, because unless it's constructive, it's not going to do anything. Everyone's always going to have an opinion. So
I'm interested in the philosophy. So you've created this as you saw a gap market, right? Of how do you help, as you said yourself, like Gen Z people consume news and access the information. Do you feel like that has been a kind of positive achievement? Because obviously you're getting lots of views, you're getting lots of members. Do you feel like there's a tangible kind of a better understanding amongst Gen Z audience of like what's happening in the world, why it matters,
whether they're more
politically engaged or more just like engaged in international affairs and what's going on? Because I guess like one of the traditional media may criticize and say, oh, they're not actually getting information, they're just like reading a funny meme. Naturally,
I think it's a fair point, in that you could just say, well, yeah, they're not interacting with the content or coming away any better informed. But from what we're seeing, some of our best performing content tends to be stuff that actually takes quite a while to fully consume, like some of the carousels that we put out, that you have to swipe for a decent amount of time to get through everything. And in terms of our analytics, we're seeing that people are actually reading what's in the caption, what the full context of the story is. And just in terms of the engagement that we are getting on the content that we put out and on the newsletter, like this was one of my early concerns, the point that you raised, that, okay, it's social media, it's not going to translate across to the long form. No one's going to read a newsletter that takes like at least 10 minutes to read, that's going to sum everything up in memes. But people have moved across, much to our early surprise, and it has continued to happen. So I do think that it's kind of like a funnel, right? You want to cast the net as wide as possible, and over time build trust with your audience, make them laugh. If they're going to be angry at something in the news, you might as well put a funny spin on it and make them laugh as well as be angry. And over time, you're going to take people into that funnel. It won't be everybody that you've brought in, but people will drip down and they'll start to look at more long form stuff, as you said, get more politically engaged, come to events, do stuff that takes much more active effort. But if you don't meet them where they are at that early stage, it's much harder for them to then get there. Does that make sense? Have I kind of explained it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting for like, especially political groups or organizations who will be making this trade-off, right? Of like, very stuck in the idea of no, information's really kind of, there's almost a purity angle, I think, for a lot of people around.
It's very serious.
Our information's very serious. It's very sensible. You don't make fun of it, don't make jest, and only by absorbing information in the long form or in great detail you
Mhm.
actually engage with it and understand the context. So I think it's just interesting.
And that still is needed. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not.
a world
I
of
love
memes.
I like the Economist. I like the FT. Like, these are all great publications. The BBC I like is great, but I think the gap that we're plugging is something that doesn't currently exist in the UK European sphere. It is all quite kind of stiff upper lip, and this is how it is.
Well, it's a new form of satire, isn't it? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
when
basically.
Monty Python first turned up on the scene, I'm sure the
Shout
silent
out to Monty
generation
Python, yeah.
thought,
Oh, yeah, you
what
can't
bloody
do that.
was this? Yeah.
Yeah.
And but actually, it was. I mean, I've learned so much about history and culture from Monty Python, but at the time it was probably
What have the Romans ever
seen
done
as-
for us?
Yeah, exactly. It's very informative, actually.
Yeah, no, I think it's really cool. It's like, as you say, it's variety, but it's also this kind of, I just like it when you have this disruptive forces, right, in circles, and where the typical attack lines would be stuff like, oh, well, it's not meaningful, they're not engaging with material, they're not learning anything. But actually, if you can point to it and say, no, it's funny, but you also get context. I mean, I've read a bunch of your stuff, and it's like,
Thank you.
You do get information from it, right? And you get this kind of funny idea of what's going on in a very quick, easy to understand way, and you can then engage with it.
You got to meet people where they are, and you can, do the stiff upper lip treatment and go, oh yeah, that's just a meme, or you can learn to do it in a proper way and get with it.
What do you think the kind of impact of social media has been on politics in the last 20 years, and are you broadly positive about it, or negative?
I mean, it's a really good question.
Or your thoughts. You don't have to make statements or opinions, but
I think
You should name your favourite politician meme.
favorite political meme.
yeah, who gives you the best content?
Of all the politicians. Oh, I'm gonna throw myself under the bus here. Kia's great for content, actually, but very underrated. In terms of social media's impact, I think it's going to sound like such a cop-out answer, but it is about intentionality and how you choose to engage with social media. You can, if you are personally quite intentional with it, come away from social media and be entertained, be informed, keep in touch with your friends. Like, look at the way that people use funny stuff or just sharing things around on socials as a way to keep in touch with their friends. I've seen it in my own personal experience, and I know that a lot of other people have used social sharing to strengthen bonds. But then the mainstream narrative is that, social media makes people lonelier and it cuts people off from their friends. But it's not always the case. It really depends on how you decide to use it. Can there be more education about how to use social media in a positive way? Yes. Do I have the answers on how to do that? I have things that have worked for me, and every time I've tried to advise people on it, but I can't say that it applies to everybody because everyone's different and everyone uses it in a slightly different way.
I think it probably. I really agree with that, but I think it probably works as like a magnifier of whether you have good, healthy habits with consuming it.
Yeah, that's
and
a good point.
Like, it can lead to some extremism, but it can also lead to, like, I've met so many friends, and I probably wouldn't have my career and what have you without social media. So, yeah,
Gives a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, so much opportunity, and like in a Britain that I think is horrific for social mobility at the moment, it's probably one of the only good things, or like ways that people have now.
No one has a better social media account because of where they're from or how much money they have.
Yeah,
like, everyone has
exactly.
access to the same pool of content.
Yeah.
So it's quite meritocratic from that point of view.
Yeah.
Do you see like the flip side of like you kind of mentioned earlier about influencers going to round tables to speak to the government and things, and you have this like difference in power, which I think people are kind of waking up to a little bit more of. Influencers could just, and those with big social media followings could really crush on politicians and like change the narrative, really impact how people are perceived on them. Take a crude example. One of your memes can be hilarious, it could also like, I'm not taking an example here, but just like in theory, it could also like hit a politician, which means like it goes counter to their narrative, or like it just makes it really difficult for them to make a point because people kind of emotionally get attracted to the funny, humorous thing.
Yeah.
And that's how Trump 2016 is a great example, right? He was like, his meme game was amazing. His team just like nailed this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just so successful that people just found it funny. Everyone's looking at him. I don't agree with his politics or his policies,
but I find him entertaining.
He's hilarious. Like, oh, that's kind of a leader we'd like or something. Yeah. Do you find that's a kind of a problem, or that's just how the world is and we need to adapt to it? And kind of any thoughts on what that means?
There's a fine line between making a meme that is funny and in good faith and then spreading misinformation. I don't think we've ever posted anything that would count as misinformation or was just, mocking somebody for the sake of it. But it is definitely a fine line. You have to, that's satire, really. You want to be able to mock the elements of something that you can mock or that deserve criticism, but at the same time stay true to the truth and what you believe is as close to objective truth as you can get. But it's also politics, and everyone's going to have a view on this and a view on the other, and you can't. It's hard to make people agree on a consistent basis of what truth is.
Yeah, I think it's like an experience we have from LFG's side of how much of a narrative can be shaped from like these isolated instances, right? So like, some funny videos, and that just goes viral. It really changes the kind of focus in Westminster, changes how kind of people are perceiving or thinking about policies. Yeah, and you kind of get this Westminster bubble effect where you might have a video which has 500k million views, but it really starts shaping people's thoughts on policies and what should be done. And when you actually look at it, that's a small percentage of the population who've seen this thing.
But it's an influential percentage.
Yeah, but percentage of people who are in Westminster have seen it is very high. And you have this like knock-on effect. I'd just be interested in your view of like, do you think that is the case? That is what's kind of happening? And also, what do you think, if you were to advise politicians or political parties or things, what would your kind of suggestion be on how they need to navigate that? Do they just need to lean in and out-meme the competition is the end of the game?
I think it needs to be part of a broader strategy. It can't be. I would never say that memes and trying to satirize everything is the only way forward. You need to mix it in with fair, objective analysis and some of the longer form stuff that we talked about. I think there's a risk that if you overdo it, you are going to then go into the realm of, okay, well, this is all that they do. There's nothing else of substance there, especially for a politician. I think you can get, like, look at what's happening in America at the moment, for example. Like, all the major candidates for 2028, they're all trying to tune up their meme game, and you've got people like Gavin Newsom who are posting like looks maxing memes and trying to outmog the competition. And there is an element of that is funny, and it works and it gets attention. And if he uses it as a way to draw attention towards serious things and policy that he's pushing, just to bring the example of Gavin Newsom, then that's good. Going back to that funnel thing that we were talking about, if it's going towards something that is positive and constructive, that's fantastic. But if you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, I don't think that's going to be particularly effective.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, when I especially pick the angle of a politician in this case, because they're in this weird world of, they get like very directly buffeted from these elements and feel the need to lean in. Like, we have a number of UK politicians who over the last couple of years have been very successful because they've kind of nailed this strategy.
Authenticity. Like, a lot of politicians maybe are quite reticent about being authentic, and humour is a form of authenticity, which they can lean more into.
Yeah, it's just a huge shaping force in our politics right now. and it's just very interesting and like where that's headed. What does it mean?
For sure.
So you're half Italian, and did you live in
For my sins.
Italy?
Yes.
Did you live in Italy for? How do you think Britain compares to Italy in terms of quality of life, infrastructure, and
food?
we know the answer. Coffee.
Let's not
Give us a chance.
Fashion.
Weather.
Yeah. But do you see yourself being in Britain or Italy in the future as well?
That's another good question. In terms of how they compare, Italy has a fantastic quality of life just because of the fact that the weather is good, the people are fairly open to expats and people coming in.
Very good family structure.
Yeah.
I always think that I really like how Italians really care about their families. And it's quite a low homelessness rate, I think, in Italy because of that.
Compared to the UK, yes,
Yeah.
I believe it is. It's fairly anecdotal, but if you look at the rates of people who are in elderly care homes in England, or also the UK, as opposed to Italy, it's lower, and it's done, but it's much more common for elderly relatives to live with the family in Italy than it is here. The family structure is a big part of it. You look at all of the centenarians that there are in Italy. You've got the blue zones in Sardinia where you've just got droves of old people knocking about and living fantastic quality, having great lives because they're around their peers and eating good food by the sea. Like you've got all of the stereotypes you can think of do exist. But Italy also has a lot of problems, and I've always found that for all of the issues that there are in the UK, there is still, I think, no real comparison with Europe in terms of the amount of talent that's here, that wants to get things done, that wants to innovate, that wants to push forward. I mean, just look at the fact that we have, 4 of the top 10 universities are in the UK.
Yeah.
And you've got so much talent there, so much hungry talent, compared to in Europe. It's much less common in my experience. But the UK has always been somewhere where I want to be in order to build something. I can't see myself, as things stand now, building something in Italy.
Yeah. Because we were talking about the small businesses in Italy, but my understanding that they find it very, very hard, and I can't remember the reason, to scale past that. Not for one.
It's quite hard to start a business at all in Italy.
Oh,
you don't
okay.
have the...
There's a lot of forms and paper forms, isn't it, as well?
I don't know how many notaries will listen to this podcast, but I have a big bee in my bonnet about notaries in Europe. In Italy, you need a notary.
Can you
Pretty
sorry?
much.
What is
A notary is
like?
essentially a form of lawyer that has to oversee the signature of key documents.
Yeah.
That is essentially what they do. In the UK, there are apps that do that.
Yeah.
And it's just a third party. It's a more advanced form of being a third party witness to something.
Is it a little bit protectionist or?
In Italy, it's essentially a mafia. It's almost impossible to become one unless you're related to one or know a notary of some form. It's a very small circle of people.
Yeah.
And they have to sign off on businesses being created, properties being purchased, cars moving between ownership of people. It's very bureaucratic.
Yeah,
and again,
gosh.
it's another cliche, but it is true.
It takes a while, as well as my understanding. You might put in like a paper thing. It'll be like 2, 3, 4 days, or it might be a week or something. And
2, 3,
then
4 days is quick. It's
Yeah.
light speed to get something done.
Because I talk to my my local Italian restaurant a lot, and
Outside of food or just in general chatting?
and I chat to they're very friendly. I like the owners, and I'll kind of complain to them about the state of the UK, and I'll talk to them. I'm like, I don't understand why you want to be here. And then they'll.
You say that to them?
Yeah, a little bit, because I'm coming home frustrated.
Yeah.
Care about this stuff, and I love Italy, and they'll go, it is so difficult to run a business in Italy, and I think, well, bloody hell, if it's expensive and difficult to run a business in Italy compared to the UK,
they've chosen to come here. It's still light years ahead despite all the issues. A good anecdote for that is it used to take, I think, max 48 hours to incorporate a limited company in the UK. At least when I did it for the first time, I was taken aback by how easy it was compared to what I'd seen. People in Italy.
Yeah.
You're waiting 6 months. You got to pay a notary $3,000 just to basically rubber stamp something, so you can open up a limited company equivalent there. 48 hours.
Yeah.
Now, with the new stuff that they've introduced at Companies House, it might take you 5 days. Which is
that for security and
it's the new ID checks that they've introduced, that kind of stuff, and because you're starting off from 48 hours, you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can swear. But that takes so long, 5 days now. Whereas people in Europe are looking at you like, I'd cut off a leg to get it done in 5 days.
Yeah.
So it's about putting things into perspective. We can obviously criticise the UK, rightly so. That there are a lot of things that need to be improved, but is also maintaining that perspective. That we do have a lot going for us.
Now, I've been told that you have a particular bee in your bonnet about Italian trains. And I will just say that
in a positive way.
Well, okay, that's good, because one of the things I love when I go to Italy is getting on the train. Like, it's just
it's fantastic.
Just a completely different experience.
Was it surprising to you? Did you expect the trains to be rubbish, and then you get on, you're like, oh wow, this is better than in the UK?
Yeah.
Where did you go? Which one did you get?
We had one which went into Venice, so we're outside Venice, and we went in to Venice. We had one on my honeymoon. We went into Rome, which is a longer story. My wife had a tooth infection, so we ended up spending the honeymoon not seeing so many sights and more seeing the hospital district of Rome, which is
get to see the Italian healthcare system,
which was very very unique experience. But anyway, I love the trains experience in Italy, and most of continental Europe. But anyway, sorry, I'm taking away. I've heard that you're very passionate about this issue.
I love them. I think they're fantastic and a model for what happens if you. I'm by no means an expert on infrastructure investment, but the state has a percentage of Trenitalia, which is the biggest one, and then I believe they also have a percentage of Italo, which is the other train company in Italy. So there's an incentive for everything to run smoothly. They invested a lot in high-speed tracks and tracks that run parallel. Like, they have some tracks that take the slower trains, and then there's another one literally parallel it that is where the high-speed trains will go. So the Frecciarossa is the most famous one, and that's the one that gets you from Rome to Milan in 3 and a bit hours, and that's roughly the same distance as London and I think just above Newcastle.
That's crazy.
At least
they're so cheap, aren't they?
at least £40 cheaper than anything that you would get going up there.
And what's the main driver? You say the fact that it's state-owned subsidies, or
state-owned subsidies, like good investment into the infrastructure itself. I think are the other biggest factors behind it.
And was just like this must have been a conscious choice by the Italian government. But why did they decide to basically lean into rail as opposed to Italian roads? To be honest, most of Europe's motorway system is also pretty damn good.
So the ones that are scared of the drivers.
Was it a reaction of going
away from
it's safer
Italian
if we
drivers?
Stick them in a tube and send them in one place?
Go.
What was was there something kind of a moment that happened, or was it just part of the essence of Italy?
I think a lot of it also has to do with the geography of Italy. It's super long and it's quite efficient if you do it in the right way to build downwards and to go along the coastline. It's easier terrain to work with along those two coastlines that you can get going down. That was a big part of it.
Did you the problem we have in the UK is obviously people being don't build anything anywhere. and High Speed 2 for all of its sins and problems, there is like a structural thing that now the UK will not have a modern, even not that modern railway system. But did you
Italy's
find
also a
Italy
much
people-
younger country in that it, from what I understand, at least one of the big issues with the UK rail infrastructure is that you're inheriting like old locomotive infrastructure and stuff that was there around the Industrial Revolution and even maybe earlier. I'm not sure, but you're a lot of old stuff that back then must have worked great. Whereas Italy was kind of starting from scratch in terms of actually becoming a unified country.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, well, now we have to find a way to...
Garibaldi, wasn't it?
Garibaldi.
I know. Biscuit.
And we've got to find a way to actually link everything up together.
Yeah.
So
was
I think
there
was
a lot of like local opposition to the infrastructure being built out? Do you know? Or how? Like,
not that I'm aware of. My grandfather was involved in some railway work around Rome, so linking Rome and Florence, and then some stuff further south. Biggest opposition that they would get would be mafia. Okay. wanting a cut.
So real opposition.
So
we have NIMBYs.
Yeah,
the
but,
Italians
these ones will actually burn the whole thing down.
Yeah. I was just putting loads of consultation documents.
Just make us do loads of paperwork.
Yeah, lots of paperwork. The other ones you'll end up in the Mediterranean. Okay.
Much less intimidating NIMBYs.
What I find so impressive about Italian infrastructure as well is how they have, and it's not necessarily, I don't think, just the main kind of train lines, but when you go to, so we were talking about Perugia just before we started filming, and in Perugia they have these great kind of little monorails that, like, I think that's what they're called, and then take you all the way up the hill. And
yeah.
And they're fabulous.
I'm completely blanking on what those are called.
Yeah, I can't remember, but they're great, and they're on stilts, and then you go. They're like a cable car, but not swinging. Like
the ones they have in Paris as well that take you up.
I've got a great image.
Montmartre, what are they called?
Yeah, I think it's quite similar to that. Yeah, I don't know.
I can't remember what they're called.
I think it's like the one that you get from the station near Luton, and then going into Luton Airport. I'm pretty sure as well. I think that's the same thing. But I just noticed in so many of these towns, and small towns, not big populations, they'd have just a great infrastructure around it. And I think it's something that, I mean, we always talk, LFG will talk about Leeds and the fact that they don't have a tram, even though it's giant. And, there's so many kind of, not just in Italy, but other European cities that have such great infrastructure in small towns. I don't really know why we don't have it. It's probably just lack of investment in smaller towns and kind of, I don't know.
I mean, that's a question for you guys. You've spoken to a lot of people who have encountered kind of institutional blocks towards building and getting things done.
You're right, Giacomo. I should know, shouldn't I?
No, but it's just I'm very curious because I can sense it, and I have my suspicions as to what the causes are. But I think you guys are well positioned to not only do something about it in terms of the work LFG do, but understanding like why is it so much harder to build now in Britain? Like, is it just a mentality block behind it? Is it just like, things are okay, they're not terrible, so we can, we don't have to invest in this, or we don't have to build the tram system here, or...
Yeah, I think like most of these things, there's several elements of feed and compound, which is the issue of when things are created, people in the local area don't feel like they benefit. Mm-hmm. So, that's a
what's in it for me
problem. Kind of what's in it for me? Things are going to get worse. You see that a lot of housing. You're going to build a housing estate. It's not going to be well designed. They're going to be like...
I'm not going to be able to get a doctor's appointment because
the infrastructure's not going to be improved. So
schools and stuff.
Exactly, yeah. So it's just going to be a massive drain in the area. The houses are not going to look very nice because it's just going to be boxes, X, Y, and Z. So that kind of drains on people. I think there's also there is an innate element in our country of being fearful of change. That's kind of very human, but a very kind of feeling of, I like my local area, I like what it is right now, especially in lots of villages and towns around the country. It's even if they're not doing that well, there's an element of feeling like change is only going to be a bad thing because it's been so badly mismanaged throughout the last few decades. And then for things like the tram, etc., these things are massively disruptive to do, And again, they take so long to do that people are basically saying, I've got to live in my town centre for 10 years with a bunch of, kind of construction work going on. And then you're playing the other two elements. Like, I'm not going to feel like it's going to benefit me.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to look horrible. And then it's just going to add like extra pressure of more people in the area, because then they're going to build another housing estate. And this is all kind of compounds. So I think this is like what mainly drives a lot of this fear, is that it's going to be mismanaged and that you don't benefit from it. So, and it's all to do with incentives, like big incentive shifts you can need to make to one of the things I'm for is we should just be more willing to offset the real costs that people do have from things like housing near you, or like build a new energy nuclear plant or something near you. Just give people money. Like, it's one of the core cleanest forms we have to offset kind of negative.
Here is something for you.
It's like, sorry, we're going to have to build some energy infrastructure. Very sorry about that. It's not, your view of a field's now going to be taken up with a few of a power station. It's probably not as nice. Here's 10 grand, go to Maldives. or invest it, or do what you want with it. Like,
I don't think it's necessarily just that people don't want that change. I think that the people that don't want that change are very, very loud about it. If that makes sense. And how
the loud minority.
Yeah. And have a bit more time on their hands potentially.
Yeah, and I think there's I think you're right, and also because a lot of people, older generation, and regardless of all the other things you could talk about, Matt, like, they have grown up, they've formed a life in a town that they've loved, and they see it changing, and the world becomes slightly stranger, slightly less what they want to experience, etc. And that's scary, and they want to push against it. I mean, just in where my family live, my parents down in the town there, they've knocked down these 2 houses from right on the beach, and they've created these modern concrete houses. And just objectively, like, they're horrible. Like, they are just objectively horrible houses. Literally, the front of it is just a concrete wall, grey, not even white, just grey. Like,
bit of an eyesore.
Yeah, it looks like a plant room. It literally has the front of it, a concrete wall with a heat pump on it. It looks like a plant room. It's just like the weirdest thing ever. And you could think these people have lived in this house next door. They were really against the building of it. And they've lived there for like 30, 40 years. They've raised their family there. And now every day they have to live next to these like big concrete blocks. And that's like a lost opportunity of saying this could have, you could have done it a different way, basically. But yeah, I think these are things that reinforce, right? Play against it. There's a housing estate which has been built right near my parents, and they've done it lovely. It's in an old wood. It's just got so much space, and they had to do it because the wood's protected. So they had to...
Took more time, I imagine.
Yeah, it took more time. The developers would have not made as much money, but they had trees that were protected, an ancient woodland, so they had to build around it. It has more space between the houses, and everyone talks about how great it is. So that's the trade-off. Sorry, went on a random. So you got to start. See, when you ask about this, why people are against infrastructure, it's
about lack of faith in people to actually, or policymakers and people who are going to execute on it, doing a good job.
Yeah,
and it's how do you change that perception of government without propaganda? I guess that was the job of propaganda back in the day.
And also because you add in so many hoops people have to jump through, you have the negative consequence that developers are now got less headroom, less margin to, they're spending so much on consultants and impact assessments that they haven't got as much money. They have to make that margin up when they sell the houses. So of course they're going to try and get as many houses into the block as possible to make it economic worth. So you've got this negative spiral where they're having to give so much money to consultants, and therefore the housing suffers, and then people don't like the housing, so you end up with this weird feedback loop.
I think big construction companies now are looking at profit margins of 1%, something like that, and you look at the risk of trying to do big infrastructure projects and buildings and everything that can go wrong and everything that can delay it. and and the difficulties of trying to construct something in the first place, and what have you. Never mind the externality, that might delay it, and it's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, if you look at that in the whole realm, right, of the construction companies are making very tight margins. They're also they don't have good cash reserves, so they're very much at risk. And then you pair that with the fact that the houses don't look that nice and they cost a fortune. No one's winning apart from the consultants who are running a bunch of impact assessments.
Lawyers, probably.
And
Planning lawyers.
Yeah, but that's what we
They're getting paid anyway. They're getting paid by the hour, so
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
billable hours.
Back on what I'd be really keen to get your kind of sense on is, you have your finger on the pulse of kind of Gen Z attitudes, and we hear a lot, especially nowadays. The last few weeks, people talking down about the UK, talking about it's not great, it's in decline, and it's being a fake narrative. What's kind of your sense with your readers
in terms of that narrative not being
true?
Like
what's the general feeling from your side of, like, is there a feeling amongst your Gen Z, your readers, etc., of like the UK is in a form of decline or isn't achieving what it should be, or is that actually more of a kind of positive attitude?
I mean, from what we've seen, there is definitely apprehension in terms of if we don't do something now, or now being the next 5 or so years, there are going to be a lot of people who just don't see themselves staying here in the long term in terms of building families and really saying, I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah.
But there is a window to change that. And I think there's a kind of cautious optimism that I've noticed around not just our page, but in general on online media, that yes, it's going to be difficult, but it is still achievable. And I think a problem is the point you were raising about a lack of faith in the people who are making the policy itself, and that needs to be addressed. But I wouldn't say that people are kind of doomers about the whole thing. Of course, you always have people on socials who are, as we were saying, inherently negative about stuff, but they'll be negative you put them in any period of history, they're going to be people that are just going to be negative about anything, even when things are going really well. So I think that there is a sense that people want to make that change. They want to be involved in it, but maybe are not necessarily sure how to do it. So I'm cautiously optimistic, and I think that's a reflection of how most of our audience would feel.
With running a social media page like The Pint, you've got to have your finger on the pulse of pop culture to kind of understand what the memes are. What do you think makes Britain special in terms of our kind of creative scene and pop culture, and how do you reckon we grow that? What do you like about it?
What makes us good at it?
Yeah, like the cool Britannia type stuff.
It's going to seem weird, but I think our creativity and our humour and our ability to poke fun at things and ourselves comes from the weather. I think there is a direct link to your sense of humour and just how drab then things around you are. Like, and your ability to look inward and go, yeah, I'm gonna take the piss, because that's the best way to cope. I mean, look at, like,
speaking like a true Italian.
That's why Italians aren't funny. No, I mean, like look at comedians who grew up in with a tough family life or had a particularly hard upbringing. They talk about how that makes them look inward and help make them funnier, or help find a way to cope with that. I
always find a lot. There's a skewed percentage of comedians that are from adopted families, which I always find really interesting. And I've been to some great shows that are kind of comedians telling the story of, like, finding out about, like, their kind of biological parents and like
a disproportionately amount of adopted comedians
Yeah, I
compared
find it
to.
really interesting. Mark
It makes
Steele
sense.
being one. There's I can't remember his name. Not begins with an S. But yeah, I find that.
There's too many good British comedians to list. But I think our creativity comes in part from that. Again, it's totally anecdotal. I don't have any statistics to back it, but
it's so dry that we need to be absolutely
we need to find other ways to cope.
I love it. The Italian take is our weather and our food sucks, and that's.
But that's good. That means
don't change it because that's the essence.
But it makes you funny,
or
funnier than others. And I mean, talking about optimism, I feel like the British creative scene is thriving right now. Like we have amazing up and coming comedians coming up. If you look at some of the biggest artists in the world, people like Olivia Dean, Lola Young, Central C that you were mentioning before we were recording, just headline.
Union Jack at Coachella.
Yeah, with his Union Jack at Coachella,
so
and it's fantastic. It's that really positive.
Charlie XCX.
Yeah. Brat Summer, which was only last summer, a couple of summers ago.
Yeah.
Actors
as well. So many actors are Brits.
And it's we punch well above our weight in terms of creative output, considering that our population is fairly small compared to the States and China and India and we are a reference point for the US in terms of. I mean, look at all the stuff that they've taken from. Look at all the stuff they've nicked from us in terms of comedies and shows.
Yeah.
So we should be really proud of that and start to see. I see comedy.
What was that page you were talking about?
Which one?
The Wikipedia that's.
Well, if you look at the Wikipedia page of American shows that are based on British shows.
Yeah.
It's quite extensive. It's a bit of a scroll. You then look at the shows that they've taken, or the shows that we've taken from them. They're mostly game shows.
Yeah.
You can have them. That's fine.
Yeah. We got the chase.
Yeah, we still got the chase. With that, touching on the theme of optimism and how people are feeling about the future, I think there is a lot of what you were just describing of feeling proud of seeing Central C headline at Coachella with the Union Jack. That's a positive thing, and we need to start seeing our creative industry as like an asset, as an export. That we should be pushing.
And the amount of people that are employed at studios, because I mean we have so many great studios. I mean I think with some of the biggest studios outside of America, certainly ones that produce like the biggest, highest grossing films and what have you. They're starting doing filming more outside of London now. I think
It's that place in Watford. That's big studio.
Is that Pinewood? I think.
Yes, Pinewood.
Yeah. Or is it what?
I think it's Pinewood.
Yeah.
It's Pinewood.
But they're starting to do it more outside of London and the home counties as well. So I'm from the Peak District, and you hear rumours of Tom Cruise has been here and Jude Law was there the other week and what have you. And
that's exciting.
But it's good, and it's great for jobs as well. And it's just like and especially outside of London where like a lot of like there's ex-mining towns, ex-industrial towns, and it's like okay, well you do actually have like a lot of big kind of buildings that could be used as studio space and what have you. So I think it's such a positive thing. Like media is not going away; it's only going to get bigger.
People are only consuming more of it.
Yeah, and I think it's we really need to be optimizing on it.
For sure. To
round off on that kind of optimism angle, we always ask guests for 2 parts of their views on one. What am I most pessimistic about? And then what are you most optimistic about?
In that order. So we can end on a high.
Okay. Pessimism first. Again, I'm not an expert, but I think I'm quite pessimistic about the structures of Westminster politics changing. So looking at stuff like and Ian Dunt's written about this in his book, which is fantastic, how Westminster works. But Downing Street being the HQ of our government is ridiculous. Like there's no reason why we should still have it there.
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be in a location that's much better suited to co-working and having a large amount of
Yeah.
people there.
Security probably as well. I imagine it's abysmal, to be honest.
Yeah, like I'm quite pessimistic on
Do you reckon
some
we
of-
should make it into like a tea room? And then
like a museum. You could turn it into a museum.
You could, and then you take
But-
the world leaders there and you develop nicely, and then they can pop round there.
Yeah,
a
and
little
then
bit. And then
build a
work
more
somewhere else.
build somewhere around Westminster that's more
Yeah.
adept to actual work being done. I'm a bit pessimistic about. I think as Brits we sometimes value tradition over practicality a little bit too much. Where this is the way that things are, and it has to be like this because it's how things have always been. Is it kind of like what you were saying before? And I think it can change, but I'm quite pessimistic on it changing at a very, very wide scale, especially with some of the older
And at the speed it
policy
needs
ma-
to.
yeah,
Yeah.
and exactly the speed it needs to change at. But on the other side, what I am optimistic about is that, other than the creative side, I think that's something that I'm really quite proud of, and I think that we should really be talking about more specific policy things as well, in terms of the Oxford Cambridge project that the government announced. I think if there's a bit of kind of will that really happen to the extent they're saying? I hope it does.
Yeah.
But if that gets pulled off, I think that will be massive in terms of growth. Being able to keep people once they've graduated from Oxford and Cambridge and
Like
retain them there.
It'll be like the most globally probably innovative space we've the world's
The
ever
talent,
seen. I don't know. You could probably argue that.
The talent there is insane.
Yeah.
And if you could keep people there and have a link to London between Oxford, Cambridge, throw in Universal Studios being built around the middle of that in Bedford, I think if that comes up, that I would say is a middle ground between the pessimism and optimism. I'm kind of middle of the road on that. Like if it could go really badly, but if it goes well, we're going to knock it out of the park, and that will be amazing. But in terms of optimism, I just think that I've seen enough grassroots change happen, and what you guys have been doing has been a part of that. I think there is a real desire to push for things, and it will take time. And maybe it sounds quite glib, but I'm quite bullish on the kind of Britishness of going ahead and getting things done.
Yeah.
I think that's always going to be about, and I'm optimistic about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on the pod.
Yeah, thank you so
It's
much.
been
Thank you for
incredible.
having me.
Can we just plug what's your at on Instagram? And where are they subscribing to?
Go to the Pint newsletter on Instagram, and if you check your emails, if you want to get a bit more long form stuff, go and subscribe to thepint.news, and give us your email. We'll respect it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.